The term ikigai or fosoja is a profound Japanese concept that combines two key elements, iki meaning life and gai meaning value or worth. Essentially, ikigai refers to the reason for being or the purpose that gives life meaning and joy. Here are some important aspects of ikigai. Sense of purpose.
To have a purr every pose.
Ikigai represents what motivates you to get out of bed each day. It encompasses your passions, values, and what you find fulfilling. Balance of 4 elements. Finding your ikigai often involves the intersection of 4 key areas. What you love, your passions. What you are good at, your skills. What you can be paid for your profession, your cultural significance. In Japanese culture, ikigai is seen as a vital component of a happy and fulfilling life. It encourages individuals to pursue their passions while contributing positively to society. Personal journey. Discovering your ikigai is a personal journey that may evolve over time, reflecting changes in interests, circumstances, and life stages. My surname is Trail, while my given name has been deemed to sound like zebraethos, like an ethos of zebras that are being guided down a trail. Here are some cartography serrations that we at Better Than It Was LLC will begin developing with our limited capital and abundant fountain of knowledge, youth, and seamless integration of our recyclable findings, holding still a structural and aesthetic value even after having antechambered existences that have imparted upon them experiential patina and given them quirks to revel at. We celebrate their unique antiquity and classic forms into renewed fragments of modern causality, imparting upon them a certain demeanor that parallels. The Japanese art and repair practice of kintsugi, or literally repairing with gold. The act of mending broken pottery with lacquer dusted with gold or silver highlights the cracks rather than hiding them. This symbolizes the idea that our scars and imperfections can be transformed into something beautiful and valuable. Embracing imperfection. Kintsugi teaches that imperfections are not to be concealed, but celebrated. This reflects a broader life philosophy that encourages acceptance of our flaws and experiences, suggesting that they contribute to our unique identity. Transformation. The process of kintsugi transforms broken objects into new works of art. This symbolizes personal growth and the idea that challenges and hardships can lead to new beginnings and perspectives. Healing. The act of repairing broken pottery can be seen as a metaphor for healing emotional wounds. Just as the pottery is restored, individuals can find ways to heal and grow from their experiences. Connection to nature. Kintsugi often uses natural materials, emphasizing a connection to the earth and the beauty found in nature. This reflects a respect for the natural cycle of life, including decay and renewal. These meanings are found in the following concepts of kin or cha gold, and sugi or tsugi to join and to mend. These words are expressed with the kanji symbols. Japanese symbols that are primarily categorized into 3 main types of characters, each serving a unique purpose in the language, beginning with the components of hiragana, ei, a phonetic script used for native Japanese words and grammatical elements. It consists of 46 basic characters and is often used for writing particles and verb endings. Then we have the morphologies of katakana, or tsuishu, another phonetic script primarily used for foreign words, loanwords, and onomatopoeia. Like hiragana, it also has 46 base characters. And finally, we have the kanji, yuren, or logographic characters borrowed from Chinese, representing words or concepts. There are thousands of kanji, but about 2,136 are commonly used in everyday writing, known as juyu kanji. In addition to these, there are also various typographic symbols used in Japanese writing, such as punctuation marks and special characters. Each of these symbol types plays a crucial role in the structure and meaning of the Japanese language. The translatable concepts from ikigai have found many observers, including that guy Storm Patrick Erie, whose grandfather was an aircraft pilot in World War II, and whose great and namesake sold fine furniture and rugs. In the New England area, after some of his ancestors traversed the Norse oceans to Ireland and found their ways to the United States, with Robert bearing his wife of the French aristocracy and who gave birth to Carl John, or Hugh Manure Flusher, that ranks as the father of the storms. I here, who wrote all this context, imagery, and audio into existence. Now, the term kaizen, or orje, is a Japanese concept that translates to improvement or change for the better. It is derived from 2 key components, or kai, meaning change or revision, ryu-e sen, meaning virtue or goodness. Kaizen is often associated with continuous improvement, particularly in the context of business and manufacturing. Here are some important aspects of kaizen. Continuous improvement. Kaizen emphasizes the idea that small, ongoing positive changes can lead to significant improvements over time. This approach encourages everyone in an organization to contribute to improvements, regardless of their position. Cultural philosophy. In Japanese culture, Kaizen is not just a business strategy, but a way of life. It applies to personal, social, and professional aspects, promoting a mindset of constant growth and development. Team involvement. Kaizen encourages teamwork and collaboration, as it relies on the collective input of all employees to identify areas for improvement and implement changes. Practical application. In practice, Kaizen can involve various techniques such as brainstorming sessions, process mapping, and feedback loops to identify inefficiencies and develop solutions. In summary, Kaizen is a powerful philosophy that fosters a culture of continuous improvement, aiming to enhance efficiency, quality, and overall effectiveness in various aspects of life and work.
Life and work are composed of life, and noise, and music, and food. Lots of people are rude, judgmental, quick to act. Nom de plume, Prometheus decapitoil. This is Eurythmy, the joys and dangers of mind-altering avenues, as in the things we allow to be in the streets, to be placed there and built for everyone to experience. We have lots of topics to cover, so let's get right down to it. This was composed between 2016 and 2024 after death, and has an architectural affinity and digestion with lots of anthropological and ethnographic considerations for the demographic of planet Earth. We do not touch on lots of smaller items, but I'll reference a couple things having to do with health and wellness right now that we can just raise awareness for, such as the Port Royal experiment that everyone should just look up and be aware of, and also monk fruit, which is an organic fruit grown on a tree that is a sugar substitute. It's way more potent than sugar and a much lesser volume, and has 0 calories and a 0 glycemic index. Could help a lot with a lot of the problems we have with obesity and diabetes, scarcity of sugar. Further ado, here is our guest speaker, Eurythmy Trail.
Eurythmy Chamber Crafts, Architectural Amenities Mission Statement: to contribute to the creation of stable and intimate built environments which aid occupants with ergonomic structures that optimize relatively small amounts of area and address different programmatic necessities of the human condition. Structures are to be composed of synergetic elements of design that become tangible by means of sourcing quality materials from select suppliers and crafting each project with dimensional precision and detail. Furniture and functional art. Tiny homes on wheels and variegated trailer cabins. Small and tiny homes on foundations. Property development and sustainable living. Conceptual architectural inspirations and collaborative design. Basis for business goals. Processed through our acute range of senses in relation to the existential state of ephemeral space, all denizens in our ecosystem experience individual perceptions that can catalyze positive change in our unified reality of common ground. Behavioral patterns contribute to the form of society. Society fabricates built environments, and built environments influence behavioral patterns. Thus, it is paramount to incorporate well-planned public and private facilities and accoutrements into the vast array of cultural families across the celestial sphere. Human resources coordinate in order to organize and manipulate the natural world. Striving towards a more amiable individual experience and efficient use of shared time, many specific variables must be considered in order to foster a more ideal ecological climate. The frequency of conflicting interests among the human species population is astonishing. As diverse a people we are, environmental substrates have certain universal properties that have the power to guide our seemingly enigmatic reactions to space. For anyone or any group to provide an utopian solution for the parameters we face is inevitably impossible. Although organisms working together in conjunction with universal philanthropic values sights an aim towards a prime potential future forever in the making. A collaboration on a global or even further intergalactic scale would require an unprecedented amount of synergy, compromise, and accord. Under this pretense, I humbly set forth on a venture in effort to share, compose, design, build, influence, inspire, and aid in the creation of furnishings, dwellings, properties, environments in general, literature, poetry, arts, and contributions to further developments of science for the betterment of mankind's and nature's symbiotic endurance and fortitude. For we shall ever be faced with riptides of enemy, adversity, avarice, malice, natural disasters, and on a long enough timeline, impending doom for our entire solar system. With ECC, I aim to introduce designs of proportional harmony and scaled rhythm to materials with conceptual value for the parties of candor that wish to be involved. In order to produce a functional style that embodies the subjective nature of art and enhances philosophical protocol, I seek to employ the architectural fundamentals of utility, durability, and aesthetic delight. Through philosophic intuition, psychological research, and this conceptual trisector, we can begin to understand more thoroughly the subliminal cacophony we live in, and hopefully explore deeper the factors that could resolve some of the major societal discord and atrocious events that plague our civilizations. Thesis, conjecture, caveat. Architecture can be seen as a delicate and meticulously administered art that uses philosophical and psychological intuition to organize every aspect of waking life by the use of materials and methods to meet program requirements, hierarchically prioritized by a client's needs and desires, constrained by parameters of space, budget, time, and law. A system put in place by an architect of the highest priority, that is, like the other constraints, constantly subject to change. In a sense as broad as this, we meander beyond the bounds of strictly constructed buildings into the scope of an entire developed experience. Phonetics, nomenclature, linguistics, technology, mass media, government organizations, and so forth to all representations, objects, structures, and systems devised by sentient beings. Fruits of invention are planned and put on the table or imposed into mass perception with specific motives, intentions, and goals that ultimately cause effects to perspire on the targeted audience. A major concern some should hold is not necessarily who, what, when, or how, but why are particular projects being sponsored. In my own microcosm, I am assured that these things are not my job to be concerned with, and understandably so, as I am but one small man on the face of an immensely large and complicated superstructure we have developed as the international communities of planet Earth. I do not aspire to force a change on an entire global community, but to merely gain a more in-depth understanding of my homeworld and relate some apprehensions and delights about what may or may not come to be of my planet's community's present and future existences. History is unraveling at every moment while I peer into the mystery of tomorrow, existing on a fleeting moment that I can only absorb and encounter through the passage of time. I reminisce and cherish notes of memorabilia, reliving moments that have already ingrained themselves in my being. While I look to improve my present situation, I call on past occurrences, planning for the future. While bound by physical constraints, I observe and exert, absorb and assert. But all seems to accumulate heavier on my own memory than my present being. To find joy in a moment is seemingly the most precious and valuable thing a lone individual can hold. Although I describe myself as an ephemeral existentialist, I find it impractical to live solely for the fleeting moment. If greater heights of euphoria are to be reached, there are opposite forces to consider. Struggle and failure are to be taken in stride as they can build strength, resilience, and characteristics of success. Metaphorically speaking, where nothing is black and white, shades of gray dominate the tonal substance of a being. If capable and determined enough to grow brighter along the way, a dimly lit room can approach a white light that is the essence of every color in the spectrum. Success and failure are relative terms and subjective in nature. Alas, everyone must come to terms with their own goals and responsibilities thereof. Contrasting elements are actually necessary to differentiate distinguishing features and can create favorable juxtapositions if integrated properly. With so many different people possessing so many different qualities, we find ourselves in a complicated yet ideal predicament. With all the potential tasks at hand to be done in our range of motion across the globe, all skill sets can be put towards gratifying and meaningful productions. Speculating from the perspective of a single nation citizen, I see no immediate way around the conflicts of war and trifling deeds. But what I do understand is the current state of our networking capabilities, information and technology, human resources, natural resources, and fabrication processes. It seems only logical that avant-garde professionals be selected from around our planet to start plans on what may be the dawn of the most important architectural project in the history of human civilization. Description of execution. A comprehensive poetic approach derived by the use of written language and/or visual representations to describe how a space can be responsible for its interactions with its surroundings, given a desire or need for particular functions, which are brought about through a formation of hard lines and curves that are accentuated by olfactory and haptic qualities. Visible light of the color spectrum, auditory considerations, respiratory effects, temperature variables, convenience of placement, and use of obligations that yield climactic reward or are chronologically necessary for such a set of functions to exist. Synopsis of statement. Each particular chamber's structural framework is custom specialized to affect its occupancy with incorporeal, psychological, instinctual, chemical, and physical stimuli, geared towards the optimization of an individual's or group's mechanism utilizing a spaces program, while respecting or contributing to larger micro-macrocosmic event chains of thriving communities that are sustainably adherent and practice habits of a healthy, productive ethos. Design is intuitive by nature, and all cabins erected structurally pronounce characteristics of conceptual identity that influence the actions and experiences of all animate organics in an evolutionary mannerism towards a societal habitat and ecosystem which holds a relatively higher potential for the naturally ordered growth of prioritized hierarchical topics, objects, and subjects belonging to a unified scale of importance and interest in the ken of an epical resonance seamlessly in formation for the intellectual, physical, spiritual, and genetic advancement of civil communities who preserve cultural roots and adapt to the needs of planet Earth's denizens and vassals' volitions. Procedural methodology, an anthropological philosophy of architectural design, methods based on public research and my independent precedent analysis of human states. The primary foundational zenith is held to be an acquiring of eloquent performances collected for use in compositions that evoke physical celebration and cerebral enhancement, in lieu of relatively more stagnant momentums of liveliness that can readily dystrophy into a harped-on revolution. Any ethereal participant emits a sort of piezoelectric response to its surroundings, given a set of atmospheric, social, environmental, and ecological cues. Within a range of emotive human states of being, how form can amplify and make more lucid our states and amplify our experiences to greater heights. Considering factors such as entropy necessity, invention, interest, triggers, inspirations, heterogeneous designs, an exodus from prosaic to a mix of orthogonal, truncated, and fluid towards a vast array of experiential qualities that amplify and enhance pre-existing states of being, such as invigoration, fear, courage, excitement, activity, movement, navigation, stimulation, entertainment, creative, studious, impulsive, Promethean, focused, relaxed, convivial, sharing, work, recreation, restful, soporific, refreshing, vanity, romance, dining, intimate, pathetic, collaborative, energy, lust, passion, stimulation, joy, fun, playful, happiness, friendly, confident, uplifting, connected to nature, contemplative, reflective, spiritually aware, searching for higher truths, nurturing, soothing, feminine and masculine type spaces to enhance, experience, and evolve our nature. Visualizing a symphony of synchronized conceptual muses systematically placed on the atlas of all terrain's face by means of materialized grace and foundations of military strength designed to better withstand anticipated moments of inertial mass in a cartographer's realm of space. Time is our range of motion through this place, and we only exist on one set of infinite points for any given instant of space. Therefore, we teleport through the framework while traveling in the frame rate of time's abstraction. Particles become more defined by the flux of mixed media within the universal substrate. Implementations of built environments produce maintenance of spectrum contrast and span to achieve a positive force, while retaining negatively charged counterparts closer to stakes of linchpins that exhibit stability and accordance to the interwoven fabric of perceptible and concordant realities. Unobliged disservices of the quagmire we are entangled that are not seeking to gain consonancy with the benevolent hierarchical echelons of our biome experience discretionary constriction from our hegemonic systems. Allurements that go so far as to entrap an occupant into penalty are to be further identified and dispelled. These measures of counterproductivity, recognized by our collective consciousness, inevitably fall into isolated splinter groups and evanesce by utilization of our shear forces, brought about through our technological dichotomized application of remedial practices and positive or negative influences that impact the gears of our infrastructural and personal networks in manners of constructive criticism, or as a last resort, nihilism towards dissonant bodies and organisms in the chasms of our refined and animated chaotic macrocosmic mechanisms. These polarized forces are ceaselessly broken down into components at moments at work, recreation, or rest. The effervescent gulf of idioms and ideologies creates turbid problems for our cosmopolitan atmosphere. The communicative barriers we all face must be carefully approached, studied, further understood, and put into an effort of collaborative resolution. Delicate, meticulous planning of kaleidoscopic spectrums at our fingertips need to be designed around the personified framework of the ephemeral and perpetuate hominid existence. Principles of human rights are too often overlooked or skewed to an individual party's practices and opinions. Plainly stated, my body is my temple. What enters my temple is of the universe's doing through my senses. Actions I perform to my own body are my sole responsibility and no one else's. If other individuals are unwillingly endangered by any action or applied substance, the corresponding physiological act or effective medium is to be moderately regulated, altered, sanctioned, refined, or chastened without encroaching on one's right to live freely. Widespread ecological or infrastructural practices and naturally manipulated genetic variation of dietetics are cast into manufactured and natural structures, encasing design goals and genetic algorithms that adapt and mutate into forms propelled to solitary and communal heights of novelty. Efficiency, delight, productivity, entertainment, amusement, skill, solidarity, mobilization, recreation as and vocations, sustenance, security, and generally an intrinsically physiological evolution. Where naturally occurring genetic codes are internally manipulated by practicing scientists who cannot compose or alter a string of DNA and simultaneously understand the minute effects such an experiment could create for the organism's immediate or long-term developments. There is an enormous amount of genetic coding below the main lines of code that govern an organism. Plants and animals evolve naturally to external stimuli, and through this manner of development, there is no question if the sacred algorithmic DNA sequence has been compromised by some dissonant frequency between so-called junk coding and a sequestered piece of mainline coding that may produce a relatively immediate advantage, but that could quite likely have adverse effects to the advancement of the long-term quality of an organic structure. Adventitious practices involving genetic coding or transrobotic animal life is only an artificial form of organic evolution that could actually stunt a potential for a greater natural evolution based on responses to the environment's onslaught of natural and industrial demands. A plat, where derelict enigmas are presented with opportune instances to integrate with the flora, fauna, and encompassing demographic is essential to any humane society. These members are introduced into the civilization to have a residential and contributing manner towards the hierarchical outlines program of that field's functional net interest. These expressions of concrete concepts are forged to bend and polarize like stainless steel under magnified light waves. An historical event was marked when a corn plant adapted against pests by exposure to tobacco crops. A similar event was marked when genetic researchers altered the main code of a tomato plant's DNA to then produce larger, more filling, but less nutritious tomatoes. Both of these types of food are products of a further evolution, but the selective corn plant experienced natural evolution through exposure and crossbreeding, while the tomato underwent an artificial evolution. We do not fully understand either form of evolution, but when nature is left to run its course of mutation without artificial interference, the building blocks towards a generally more coherent evolution are not interrupted. When near understanding of all lines of genetic coding, it would then be a better time to tweak genetic information. Things we ingest affect human evolution food, drugs, sights, sounds, smells, textures. Vibrational frequencies of matter need to be in harmony, ideally at solfeggio rates. When frequencies are interrupted by fear or meander from a solfeggio state, evolution slows down. Our built environments and mass media are currently retarding or improving our senses through arrangements of frequencies. In order to divulge the innumerable variables responsible for this heresy, we must tactfully employ the use of our resonant communal knowledge. This set of materials is merely a pinion in the shoestrings of spatial phenomenon in which distribution of measured theories of static and live loads coalesce as the equity prescribes into a more fluid latitude. Accelerating towards the breaking point of an odd number of layers upon layers of absolutely hypothetical orthodox molds is a directive. The smelting pot and ladling of propaganda or communications has a thermal lining of masonry units that are the basis of our kitchen's delicatessen, so to speak. Variations of recipes which form an interlocking wall of infrastructural, industrial, social, and individual tessellations form our diplomatic cookbooks for the wide range of dilemmas we face as a people. With all the diversionary topics holding attentions at reveille, an organized system of fabrications is stepping further in form in order to make us gain or lose potential new abilities. The parties most involved with these orders of mass fabrication make important decisions about what qualities they would like to see developed and/or stunted. As much as an individual has free will, any and all environmental impacts within one's range of perception will influence that person's future thoughts, decision-making processes, actions, habits, developments, and beliefs. For the sake of our society's metamorphosis into a higher functioning living arrangement, I believe it is absolutely necessary to implore the participation from the pariahs and socialites, the artists and scientists, all the way to the executive officers and government officials. It is no simple log of rhythm to calculate a solution that could set us on a path of cooperative collaboration. Such a successive set of relations would require a vast dynamic of information, perspectives, and considerations. For our ecosystem to move forward responsibly, the grand-scale findings of our global habitat would ultimately have to be a subject of calculation, planning, and initiation into reality for an eclectic group of qualitatively superior students of the world's current free apertures. To imagine our planet working cohesively, I anticipate economic disputes and conflicts. In reality, though, all the natural and human resources of our universal being must be taken into account and put into an itemized list of available benefits for our prolonged humanity. The studies of these precious resources must not be treated in a cold, calculated manner that could give absolute authority or profit to any sect or entity. The planning cannot be approached as a short-sighted solution that achieves only expedited or temporary resolve. It is crucial for such a phase of ambitious development to treat each aspect of our potential sensory ingestion with careful, deliberate intentions. The fact is, we are all inhabitants of the same atmosphere. We must first look at what Earth and other celestial bodies may have in terms of materialistic supplies that could be put to use in a synergetic advancement for all of our denizens. If a proposition can be articulated for all the world to consider, that would provide equity, stability, and opportunity to areas in need and further develop zones of higher technological and infrastructural aptitude into more specialized, responsive, intuitive, efficient, and communicative environments. Some serious negotiating may actually take place across international borders and cultures. In terms of national economies and material resources within boundaries, it only makes sense that these sectors of the globe should feel entitled to their own contents, as we are all faced with scarcity. To plan for a global movement that would benefit the entire world economy is a large incentive, but could not be enough to reasonably allow for the free submittal of state properties. In such a predicament, negotiations will take place. It would be ideal if such negotiations were public and all information about international operations were transparent. Unfortunately, we live in an extremely complex state where large global plans for the liberation and benefit of all nations may not be a part of every world leader's agenda. I can only infer about what may go on behind the closed doors of our global managers, but for me to adopt an analytical role about our planet's past and potential future, I optimistically hope that such a public-spirited plan would be safe to put into the sphere of accessible information and propaganda. As a skeptic and realist, though, I understand the dangers of exposing research and development progressions and intentions. If a contender is aware of his adversary's plan to create an institution of sprawling magnitude and does not have the means to compete, their most likely action will be to attempt to foil any progressions to the system. As human beings, we have a wide range of feelings stemming from things that are absorbed through our dynamic range of perception. Our overall experience is determined by the sum of all the things in our current atmosphere, our process of interpretation based on our past experiences, and our thoughts about the future. A person's immediate actions are a product of their perceived individual situation in relation to the grander scheme of their atmosphere. To create a safer and freer civilization, we must look at each and every variable of our cultures and systems of order. The foresight and anticipation of reactions to sensory perceptions is essential to be able to devise a tenacious hypothesis that can achieve cosmopolitan and personal solutions. With all the tools at our species' disposal, we control the fate of our entire ecosystem. Our human characteristics and personalities have an uncanny resemblance to creatures of the ocean. Some find the path like that of a bloodthirsty shark, while others find the flamboyant life of the little lionfish agreeable with their demeanor. As not to deviate, though, the point is some people have adopted certain traits as an intrinsic part of their being. While the individual human being ultimately chooses his or her path, some things are inherent in their surroundings and inevitably influence and partially determine the lifestyle that matures. People speak about the topic of heaven and hell in representation of what may come in the afterlife, and is sometimes seen as symbolic for what people experience in their everyday lives internally and externally. A really tricky part of society comes down to the environmental factors people are born into that overwhelm their potentials to escape lives of criminal culture and poverty. One of the core goals of my literary endeavors with ECC is to raise awareness for the need to phase out the inequity we face as a massive living organism and the demands we must meet in order to do so. While it is improbable to imagine a world where everyone lives with an immaculate moral fiber, we must not only plan for the implementation of perceptions that inspire delight and vitality, but also for those that imbue fear, anguish, despair, lament, solace, courage, and hate when deemed necessary. The wide range of characteristic traits must be reined in and doled out per deed. So I ask, what is communication? And what are the rules of fashion? Yes, we've all heard people joke about the fashion police, but it goes much further than clothes. What messages or effects are we conveying to general observers by the things we choose to introduce into the outer realms of an origin? Whether it be an electronic wave frequency, a pair of trousers, an ad in the newspaper, an interview on television, a sign on the interstate, the layout of roads and structures in a city, the rooms in your home, the words we exchange with other beings, or even the foods we eat. These are all forms of communication with an intended receiver carried out in a deliberate fashion with specific intent. Of course, as a member of a society based on free enterprise, I would never wish for any unnecessary censorships to the media or restrictions on individual or corporate endeavors, although certain standards must be kept to ensure the well-being of our communities. American society, as I know it today, does have certain federal organizations that regulate what processes are and are not legal to perform. The flaw I most plainly see in this system is that the government is not given higher authority to dictate responsible decisions. We have a staggering amount of citizens who cannot even begin to fathom the magnitude of the options they vote for. It also seems to me that the topics put to vote are often relatively trivial. If one is to ask a class of children to vote on ice cream for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, at least some of them would opt for all three. If a person goes into cardiac arrest or has a seizure, should we ask fishermen to vote on what is the best course of action, or call on a trained doctor to make a confident decision without feedback from the crowd? I agree with the notion that less government is better government. In order for this idea to have palatable results, though, we must call on the systems at the disposal of the government. With access to each citizen's education, work history, and if submitted, field of interest, the governing body can begin to help organize the human resources within its borders. The Army Corps of Engineers has authority to plan and execute infrastructural projects that improve environmental stability and provide safety for our citizens. If we get the correct private companies involved in our infrastructural missions, we could provide much more than safety and stability. Without encroaching on private sector rights, the government is unfortunately limited in its ability to produce a grander positive ethological change. Therein lies the challenge for our society to network and overcome the obstacles ourselves. Coordination with our governing bodies is of utmost importance for an attempt at a flourishing union of states around the world. Lacking the ability to communicate at higher levels of diplomacy, our most apt citizens are often bent to the will of corporations that are driven by avarice or based strictly around monetary gains. Therefore, it seems that it should be a matter of national and international security that individuals or even entire companies with preferable skill sets and experience should be recruited for the initial planning of potential global developments. Before addressing other major issues around our civilization, I find it practical to begin with the issues concerning our built environment, which provides shelter, comfort, and navigational qualities amongst many others. No matter the level of education, literacy, or intellect an individual may have, we all have the privilege to experience the structures we live in and around. Is art capable of producing change in a structured society? Some investigating has shown the possibility that there has been a philosophical disenfranchisement of art, and that some influential philosophers, artists, and professors have contributed to or explained government control through the use of philosophy to protect the upper hierarchical echelons of society from dangerous art. The Philosophical Disenfranchisement of Art by Danto. I, for one, would feel more comfortable in a society structured around art. Deciding which concepts should be personified and celebrated in and around a structure or set of structures can deeply impact our perceptions and, in turn, our actions to come. Instead of seeing art as merely a representation, I adventure the possibility to experience an arty earth in which we are to live in, utilize, sense, move about, and process through our electromagnetic fields, while being able to intuitively navigate our courses and step into spatial forms that reflect and enhance their programmatic functions, based upon our learned motifs and their conceptual substantial values that derive from scientific evidence, human perspective, theory, and eternal innovation of the conscious mind. Terpsichore Villadom, a community organization based on varied schedules of members in the villa, holding the principles of rhythmic motion and social harmony in high regard. All anomalies introduced into the sphere of the villadom conduct a presence of mind for the constructive nature of the live culture, where distinct features at specific vantage points are placed in order to achieve communicative relationships between an observer's stream of consciousness and his or her arbitrary perceptions. These necessitated features influence a programmatic function's readability, efficiency, and amiableness, while addressing the need for particular concepts' incorporations into the juxtaposition as a whole product that imbues an environment built for a relatively more durable quality of life for its inhabitants. An aura emanating from the imbroglio intentionally creates fragmented causalities, reaching for fathomable and predictable outcomes that assert assimilations of the present and future dimensional state's needs. The structures governing the cultural essence of the societies, activities aim to endorse a limited plethora of valuable work ethics and latent studies that strive towards an epsilon of lucid inspiration in the varying art forms. Mediums of expression including, but not limited to, objective classification, internalization, reciprocation, awareness, organization, sacred geometrical patterns, human perseverance, elementary planning, and the ecological implementation of our available resources in order to create a contribution to the macrocosmic machine, optimized for improving live organisms' experiences. While traveling through time or reflecting on past cycles of thought and dissipating any sprouts of anomie in the oblivious, omnipotent spatial continuum of dawn's eternal recurring circuit, there are pervasive and welcome parametric articulations for our tectonic morphologies and flux of developing urbanism or spatial conquest. Eurythmy chamber crafts, architectural amenities, terpsichore villadom. Intimate neighborhood development of small and tiny homes. 1. Concierge cabin. Grounds. Keeper dog trot connected to adjacent structure through lockable passage to give option for individual housing or family residence 2. Terra firma. Traditional orthogonal 3. Jetty pad. Green roof and glass above hill section, juts into common area, influences traffic. 4. Heron vector. Penthouse. 2-way. Glass, water, stone, long, elevated plush. 5. Fall exaltation. Vaulted ceiling, rustic tones. 6. Kinetic home. Hexagonal, kinetic art and structure. 7. Incognito indigo. Tucked away near woods, terrace garden, blends with surroundings, influenced by surrounding structures. 8. Umbra lodge, dome with tinted glass. 9. Scalene alien A-frame. Geometric experimental A-frame, sterile lab area, office space. 10. Dicey limelight. Bright, high energy, rounded effects, light diffusion, frosted glass. 11. Tessellation. Stilted, annexable, workshop below main structure. 12. Starry moire. Visual patterns, optimized acoustics. 13. Omega camp. Dark, cozy, serene. 14. Zebrathos trail. Nature walk, exterior of homes, leads to communal garden and tower area. 15. Gretna green zone, communal garden. 16. Cephid. Communal octagon tower, small saltwater pool and waterfall, butterfly house, kitchenette, pool table, fire pit and grill area outside.
Eventually supplemented with a semi-dystopian novel based on a potential future where evolution has taken a split path between those who are heavily reliant on technological aids, implants, and or modifications, and those who have depended more on natural growth, instincts, senses, and environments, slightly telepathic, hypersensitive, genials, as we call them, with a copper-shielded base of operations and a cavern deep in the sea, filled with purified air sourced from geological phenomena, versus the so-called realists, humans with artificially intelligent genetic modifications and mechanical implants, augmenting their limbs with frequency monitors and all these other types of gas tree. There are 9 sectoral zones of the globe, all coexisting and trading freely with minute statistics of crime and or disapproval of governing bodies. The plot starts around 2 school children from different backgrounds, juxtaposed, and relates the experience of a boy walking into an art shop who's wondering, why is the art all so serene? Because people are overstimulated and seeking simplicity.
Beat yourself up.
Realist, obese man with
Stand
mechanical
up tall,
legs,
infinite inclination.
hearing, sight implant.
Kill the killer inside your head.
Stumbles
Exert a word on the world.
upon Masonic
Positively
meeting
profound perception.
of Genesis, while guiding his automatic septic disposal beacon.
Preoccupation inside my head.
The snake, which cannot cast its skin,
A soup of soul driving me.
has to die. As well, the
Take
minds,
time to tether the strings of life together.
which are prevented from
Make
changing
something
their
whole
opinions.
and expanding. The mission is
They cease to be
indefinitely
mind.
demanding.
That's Frederick Nietzsche.
And all beings beseeched. So rise up out the seat, get on your feet, and back and reach for the sake of not being blind. I've already seen how this time flies. I can't let this life pass me by.
Eyes are on irons, Ionian ionization towards disorders, order. Temple and extremities, foundation to freeze. Cornice to cosmic, no matter where you
So
go.
much I've done and so far I've gone. It feels like I've already won, but still I yearn for more space to explore.
Or what you do.
After tasting the immense heights of psyche, learning how to lose myself and delve into a plane of existence that lacks all resistance.
You spend your entire life
I carry on with this enraptured stature to observe and exert, to absorb and assert.
within the confines of your mind.
A pool of experiences flood my forehead, and still the journey presses on. On and on.
Sometimes it's not what you do, but how you do it.
something more. So enough's enough, we'll call it quits. But for now, we'll just keep making ourselves sick. Thinking back to the way things were, I noticed everything. Nothing sparked my memories like what you said about the late nights we'd be spending out, getting high and passing out. What will happen now? You said to me, you said to me, you said to me, you said to me, better sit the story, but I'm sorry. You said to me, better sit the story, but I'm sorry. You said to me, better sit the story, but I'm sorry. You said to me, you said to me, better sit the story, but I'm sorry. You said to me, better sit the story, but I'm sorry. You said to me, better sit the story, but I'm sorry. You said to me. Thinking back to the way things were, I noticed everything. Nothing sparked my memories like what you said about the late nights we'd be spending out, getting high and passing out. What will happen now? Thinking back to the way things were, I noticed everything. Nothing sparked my memories like what you said about the late nights we'd be spending out, getting high and passing out. What will happen now?
Oh yeah, that's gonna be good.